Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
It all starts now, ladies and gentlemen. Ron Paul's in the news. Judge Napolitano in the news. Wow, October 7th, 2 years ago in the news because Israel's what? Mad because hostages are being released? I'm not sure I understand all the mix-up, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just telling you, we're here live to break it all down for you. This is Liberty Roundtable Live. I'm Sam Bushman, your host, and I've got a great, incredible talk show for you guys today. Some of you folks might want to mute yourself, though. In the meantime, we've got so much to cover, so little time. Last episode, we had Dr. Scott Bradley with us, doing a great job as always, freedomsrisingsun.com. We really talked about commemorating courage. We talked about God and religious liberty. We talked about this daily caller promotion of violence. We talked about witches putting curses on Charlie Kirk. And best of all, we talked about a book challenging the academic consensus, saying there's no God. That's what science says. Now science is saying there has to be a God. And the book documents the details. It's incredible. I commend the authors of this book. It's been around in other languages since 2021, but they're bringing it into English, translating it into English for 2025. It's great news, to say the least, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we also finished up by talking about there's a lot of religious interest for Generation Z. They're going to church. They're coming back. Even a 2023 study highlights that a third of 18 to 24-year-olds believe in God, believe in religion. They want to go back to it. We also prayed for Joe Biden. What about that for conservatives? Praying for Joe Biden. Without further ado, Lowell Nelson's with me, campaignforliberty.org. Joe Biden has cancer. He's undergoing chemo and other treatments now. The good news is they say that his cancer's hormone sensitive and responsive to treatment. Lowell Nelson, I'm praying for Joe Biden. What do you think of that?
Well, that's the Christian thing to do, Sam, and I will do so as well. Did not know his predicament, but it's not fun for anybody to go through illness of any kind. And so I certainly pray for him as well.
Amen to that, sir. We've got Dr. Scott Bradley with us this hour as well. You're on the road, right, Lowell?
I'm in St. George this week for the senior games, playing 5-on-5 basketball with a bunch of men, and so that's where I'm at. So that's why you might sound why my voice sounds a little bit different this morning than usual, because I'm calling you on my cell phone. But happy to be a part of your show this morning.
You know what I call that, Lowell? Geriatric hoops.
A bunch of old geezers knocking themselves out on the basketball floor. Yep.
You know, my dad was an old man playing basketball, and he'd love to play with all the young guys. And my dad was like 75 years old playing basketball. And these young guys could run up and down the court, and my dad couldn't keep up with them from that point of view. But if they got him the ball, he could make it from just about anywhere. And so he'd love just to school these young folks to stand around and just nail them. And so that's why I call it geriatric hoops. I'm like, Dad, this is great. Anyway, thought I'd tell you that. Yeah. Dr. Bradley's with us too. Say hi to Lowell, Doctor.
Well, good morning, Lowell. Good to hear your voice again. We don't get to communicate nearly as often as we should.
That's right, Scott. So good to visit with you, at least even if it's on this show this morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely.
All right. The GOP's in the news, and the GOP, in my opinion, at least when it comes to Obamacare, has been disappointing, to say the least. Should we start there, Lowell?
Well, it certainly can, Sam. You know, Ron Paul writes a column every week and has been doing so for at least 30 years, and he's not giving it up anytime soon. So he writes that, you know, about this big shutdown, the government shutdown, right? There's over 2 million non-military federal workers. There's about 750,000 of them who have been furloughed because of the shutdown. Ron Paul writes, quote, most federal programs will continue operating, including the major entitlement and welfare programs, The national parks will remain open, if understaffed and with closed visitor centers. Unfortunately, he writes, unfortunately, the shutdown will not affect the military-industrial complex, end of quote. So apparently the Democrats are refusing to vote for a short-term continuing resolution unless it extends the increase in Obamacare subsidies that was part of the Biden-era COVID relief legislation. Right, so that's why there's an impasse between the Dems in Congress and the Republicans in Congress. The Democrats, they don't want to vote for it unless it extends the Obamacare subsidies, and the Republicans, they don't want to give health care to illegal aliens. Okay, so there's an impasse. The Democrats want to give health care to illegal aliens. The Republicans don't. So they're haggling out that issue right now. Well, it turns out that, as you remember, Republicans for years
Well, right now,
campaigned on the
Doctor, right now,
common.
Lowell, right now is the time for them to put forward an abolish Obamacare single bill, straight up and down vote, and see who votes for it and who votes against it. Then we'll know who's really who. Do it right now. You can do these little bills and put people on record while you're waiting for the resolution to be solved. Just shut down Obamacare entirely, and then it becomes a non-issue.
Yeah, if that would be awesome if that is what would happen. But there's too many weak-kneed Republicans in Congress that are not going to vote for that, even though we do have a slight majority there. It's very slim. So anyway, that's the deal with the shutdown. But of course, Ron Paul's solution is to free up the free market. Allow the free market to come in and do what it does. He says unapologetic advocacy of free markets is the only effective way to oppose big government schemes like Obamacare and to advance liberty. That's Ron Paul in his
Amen to that, Dr. Bradley.
Tuesday.
Well, absolutely, and again, we've talked about this the last couple of 2 or 3 times we've been together, because it boils down to basically everybody points their fingers at the other. In fact, I stayed up really later last night than I should have, I guess. But watching this stuff unfold in Israel and the hostages and stuff. But they had some things with Mike Johnson and newscasts, and everybody is pointing the finger, and the truth is there for those that'll hear it, but there's a spin on everything, and it just, they're trying to confuse the issue to the point that nobody makes any sense, and all it does is divide the country further.
Well, if Obamacare is the big divide, Lowell, then if we abolish it, it's not a big divide anymore. It's gone. That's why I'm saying the Republicans have work to do right now. They pretend they want to sit home while the impasse gets brokered by, Joaquin Jeffries or Donald Trump or, Schumer Shutdown, or maybe Mike Lee or Mike, whatever his name is, Johnson in the speakership, or the minority leader, the majority. Look, you've got to stand up and stand tall. Why aren't members of Congress in the House saying, right now is our chance to abolish Obamacare? Single up, down vote bill, get her done. Pass it in the House and say, hey, if Obamacare is a sticking point that we're all fighting over, it's gone now. Isn't that just an incredible opportunity?
Well, it sounds like a great opportunity to me. I don't know that you'd have a majority of the House vote for it, even though the Republicans do have a slim majority in the House.
Well, they claim they're all for. They claim they were going to get rid of Obamacare. They voted 40 times when they had the chance of no opportunity to get it done. The second they really have an opportunity, they won't bring it up.
Well, the thing they got going in the U.S. House, though, Sam, is this system of where if you bring something before the House, it only gets to the House floor if the Speaker allows it to get there. So you bring a bill like that,
so pop it in there and blame it on Mike. I'm fine with that. Then we'll know who's who. That's my whole point. Nail those who are responsible for the holdup, Dr. Bradley.
Well, Mike's not going to allow that to happen, because he knows that he'd be stepping on the toes of a lot of his Republican friends that are for it. But in addition to that, what they could do is a discharge bill where they got 218 signatures if they really thought that they could on that. But I don't think they can. I do not believe that the Republicans, given the most fantastic opportunities in the world, would take advantage of it. They just simply, they're socialists also. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's what we continue to elect. And I think our Republicans in the state of Utah are empty suits that
You're
would
right
not
about
do
that
anything like
reality check. Sad but true. And that's the reason that the headline says GOP Obamacare surrender. Ron Pauley's right as rain, as always. Available at LouRockwell.com. Quick pause. Lowell, Dr. Bradley, yours truly, back in seconds. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live. All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman, Lowell Nelson, Dr. Scott Bradley on your radio. Lowell Nelson, campaignforliberty.org. The Good Doctor, freedomsizingsun.com. We're all syndicated by the Loving Liberty Networks, lovingliberty.net. Spread the word, share the love. Lowell Andrew Napolitano's on fire.
He is, Sam. When presidents kill, he's talking about something I did not know had happened, Sam, until I read this last night. Quote, during the past 6 weeks, President Donald Trump has ordered U.S. troops to attack and destroy 4 speedboats in the Caribbean Sea, 1,500 miles from the United States. The president revealed that the attacks were conducted without warning, were intended not to stop, but to kill all persons on the boats, and they succeeded in their missions. Trump has claimed that his victims are narco-terrorists who were planning to deliver illegal drugs to willing American buyers. He apparently believes that because these folks are presumably foreigners, they have no rights that he must honor, and he may freely kill them. As far as we know, none of these nameless, faceless persons was charged or convicted of any federal crime. We don't know if any were Americans, but we do know that all were just extrajudicially executed, end of quote. Wow. Well, Napolitano asks the question, can the president legally do this? And if he answers his own question, no, in a word, basically, he can't, or he may not. He doesn't have permission to do that. You know, and so you look at the history of this, the states ratified the Constitution, which vested in the general government very specific enumerated powers. The states vested Congress specifically with the authority to write the laws and to declare war. The president enforces the laws that Congress has written, and he's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, but restraints are imposed on both. Congress may only enact legislation in the 16 discrete areas of governance articulated in the Constitution. Most of those are found in Article 1, Section 8. And the president may enforce only the laws written by Congress. He doesn't get to write laws for himself or for the executive branch of government. Quoting Napolitano again, the Constitution prohibits the president from fighting undeclared wars, and federal law prohibits him from employing the military for law enforcement purposes, end of quote. Well, so Sam, Congress did not declare war, and Congress did not issue a mark of reprisal, to my knowledge, right? I mean, did you hear anything about that? Was that in the news at all? Then I just missed it?
No, sir. It's not there.
I didn't think so. So Judge Knapp continues, quote, the Fifth Amendment assures that no person's life, liberty, or property may be taken without due process of law. Because the drafters of the amendment used the word person instead of citizen, the courts have ruled consistently over the years that this due process requirement is applicable to all human beings. Basically, wherever the government goes, it is subject to constitutional restraints. And traditionally, due process means a trial. In the case of a civilian, it means a jury trial. In the case of enemy combatants, it means a fair, neutral tribunal. End of quote. So we got this deal going on where, you know, international law does provide for stopping ships engaged in violence in international waters. It also provides for stopping and searching ships, right, if you have probable cause for the search, and if you're in U.S. territorial waters. But remember, where Trump's, 1,500 miles off the coast of the United States, that is not U.S. territorial waters. And there's no law that permits the summary execution of people not engaged in violence on the high seas or anywhere else. And so I just think this is despicable what's gone on here. Just one last quote from Judge Knapp in his column here. He writes, "The Attorney General has reluctantly revealed the existence of a legal memorandum purporting to justify Trump's orders and the military's murders, but she insisted that the memorandum is classified." End of quote. Are you kidding me? A legal memorandum can only be based on public laws enacted by Congress and interpreted by the courts. There are no secret laws, and there can be no classified rationale for killing the legally innocent. End of quote. So, Sam, what the president did here, I believe, was wrong and is further proof, in my opinion, that power corrupts a person's character. I pray that he will repent and take more seriously his oath to defend the Constitution and not to trash it. Sam?
All right, Dr. Bradley, you want to chime in on this one? I agree 100% that the president has never been delegated authority for this. If you don't believe me, go read your Constitution. In fact, Congress has this chief responsibility that they've simply shirked their duty and been derelict in their duty on. Doctor?
Well, the president, more and more and more, is acting monarchically. I mean, he's acting as though he is an elected monarch that can do anything he takes his heart to do. Read the 69th Federalist Paper if you're interested in what the Constitution and the Founding Fathers had to say about the president's power and war making and so on and so forth. It is a complete it's an abrogation. The Congress needs to step in and say, over our dead body in so many ways. I mean, I'm so appalled that the Congress is not defending their constitutional authority as they have carried forth. Well, they haven't done anything hardly this. I mean, since they came into session in January, they've basically abandoned their responsibilities, and the president's filling in that vacuum. And he's just overreaching and overreaching and overreaching. I mean, what the heck is he doing right now in the Middle East? He does not have
these members of Congress and say, you clowns are being told by Mike Johnson to go home and just wait this out while these negotiators negotiate the big, beautiful spending boondoggle continued and kicking the can down the road discussions. You guys need to get back in your seats and take care of business. Abolish Obamacare. Vote to bring the traffic controllers' paychecks back. Vote to rein in the president on these issues. The Congress is the one that has the delegated authority regarding war, mark and reprisal, some of these things that relate directly to what we're discussing, right?
Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is that the Federalist Papers are very, well, I'm not going to take the time to read to you all of the things that we could. They have a delegated constitutional authority, not only that, but a duty to step forward and defend their constitutional territory. And they're not. And because of that, it just goes overreach, past overreach until I don't know where we reach the tipping point. I don't know when that'll happen, when we can't come back. But I suspect we're getting mighty dang close to when that might be brought about, and I feel terrible about it.
A war, is that what's going to happen about this? I know on one hand right now we're hearing peace everywhere. We got the peace accord between Israel and Hamas. We've got this awesome situation. I'm just not so sure that it's going to be peace. I'm grateful for what we've got, but it seems to me that we've got too much provocateur going on for peace.
Yeah. Well, I want to suggest, Congress could issue a letter of marque, if they truly felt that these speedboats in the Caribbean Sea were a danger that's laughable, but the founders did provide, the founding generation, the framers did provide a way for the United States to take out an enemy that wasn't associated with a country, right? I mean, you can't declare war on Chile or Argentina or Colombia just because they have some speedboats in the Caribbean, right? But you could issue a letter of marque or reprisal against. I guess if they haven't hurt you, it wouldn't be reprisal, but a letter of marque, and you just say, look, any privateer that wants to go and take out these speedboats, we'll pay you this much money to do that. But there's a fair warning, right? I mean, if Congress wanted to do that, then, I mean, if Trump wants to take out these speedboats, he needs to go to Congress and ask them to issue a letter of marque, and then that speedboat or whatever becomes marked. And so I don't know if Dr. Bradley, if you want to elaborate on how a letter of marque or a letter of reprisal works, that might be instructive for us here this morning. But I think that would be the correct way, the legal way, to take a speedboat out, in the Caribbean Sea.
Well, it absolutely does take an act of Congress to do so, and marque and reprisal is basically a subcontract war. I mean, we could have subcontracted somebody to take out Obama, let's say, if he truly was somebody that we were targeting in, Afghanistan, and we could have subcontracted it to a group of people. Say again?
Bin Laden, right?
Osama bin Laden, you mean?
Osama
right?
bin Laden, yeah. So
right.
the point of the matter is, we subcontract war with a marque and reprisal. Now, there was a Paris Accord. Can't remember if it was 1862 or 1863 that says marque and reprisal is not legal anymore internationally, but it's still in our Constitution, and we would have authority to take that act if we chose to do so and subcontract it. But Congress has to do it. The president can't
Amen
do
to
it.
that. The other thing is we could wait till these boats hit our shore, and the second they come ashore, we can investigate and say, hey, you don't have any authority to be in our country. We're going to investigate these boats. If there's drugs and everything else, then you could take action. Then you don't have to go out all around the world and go far from America. Let's defend our shores from enemies, foreign and domestic, shall we? All right, hang tight, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching and listening to Liberty Roundtable Live, syndicated by lovingliberty.net. Spread the word, share the love. More in seconds.
Oh, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Liberty Roundtable Live. This is Lowell Nelson riding shotgun this morning with Dr. Scott Bradley and your host, Sam Bushman. Jumping next to what's going on there between Hamas and Israel. Caitlin Johnstone has a great article about October 7th. This is, her article was posted last week, which was the 2-year anniversary, if you want to call it that, of the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas, supposedly. And what she's positing here is something I've felt for a long time. I've felt that this was a false flag, this attack. I've long suspected this. Why? Well, because historically, this is how most wars begin. A lot of people don't know this or don't recognize this or don't want to understand this, but false flags is probably the most popular way to start a war. To get the people in your country, behind you in your efforts to wage war on some other country. Well, she posted the following on X just last week, quote, "Never forget October 7th, 2023, that fateful day when Israelis were brutally massacred by Israeli tanks and Israeli helicopters and Israeli drones and Israeli soldiers and Israeli bullets, and also by Hamas a little bit," end of quote. And then she pasted a blurb from the news desk of the cradle.co, which went like this, quote, "Ex-Israeli war chief confirms issuing the Hannibal directive to kill own civilians and soldiers on 7 October. Israeli forces used attack helicopters, drones, and tanks to kill their own civilians and soldiers while blaming the deaths on Hamas," end of quote. Well, interesting, Sam. This is a news item. It came from the news desk dated February 7th of this year. Here it is, October. I'm not quite sure why this didn't come out, 8 or 9 months ago, but I do, Maybe it's because we don't read all the newspapers all the time. There's a lot of newspapers, thousands of them around the world, and maybe this is one that we just overlooked. I don't know. But John Stone goes on to cite mountains of evidence, quote, that high-level Israeli officials allowed the attack to proceed undefended in order to advance the genocidal land grab we are seeing advanced now, end of quote. Well, so it's very interesting. John Stone, in her article, talks about how Israel wants everybody like us. He wants the rest of the world to see Israel as an innocent little lamb who was attacked completely out of the blue and had no choice at all but to reluctantly respond with military force. And then she goes on to a little bit of a diatribe here, which is pretty persuasive, actually. She says, forget the scorched earth incineration of the Gaza Strip. Forget the bombed out hospitals and methodically dismantled healthcare system. Forget the hundreds upon hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza who have been deliberately starved to death. Forget the fact that every relevant human rights institution on earth has determined that Israel is committing genocide, and that zero comparable humanitarian institutions have said it isn't. Forget the fact that human rights experts have been describing Gaza as a giant concentration camp or open-air prison for years prior to October 7th of 2023. Forget the fact that Israel has been routinely murdering Palestinian children and other civilians in the months prior to the Hamas attack. Don't look at any of that stuff, she writes. Just look at the stuff that makes Israel look like a victim. End of quote.
Well, and that's interesting,
that's
too.
Israel.
That's interesting, too, Lowell, when you look at this, because how many people have died? About 1,200 died when Hamas attacked 2 years ago, October the 7th. And then since then, on the Israel side, about another 1,000 or maybe 2,000. The numbers are very hard to pin down depending on what sources you go. But you're talking about 2,000 or 3,000 Israeli kind of side. It's over 60,000 on the Palestinian or the Hamas side of this discussion that are dead. Women, children, innocent civilians, et cetera, et cetera. The number's so lopsided, I don't even see how they can defend themselves with a straight face in this discussion. It's not, let's, retaliate, let's annihilate. Israel says, oh, well, they plan to wipe us off the face of the map, therefore we're justified. It really seems like they're wiping the others off the map. Doctor?
There's so much to say about this, that this has been such an unbalanced reporting kind of thing in general across the nations of the world. The Israel spin machine has been very, very heavily involved in this, and all of the things that are cited are accurate and need to be considered by people. And I think that's why I think Charlie Kirk was modifying his 100% support of the Zionist movement. A book I always recommend.
Cannot be overlooked. I'm not saying Israel did it publicly. I don't know who did it. I'm just telling you that it's very fascinating. The second he decides he's not in Israel's camp, things don't go well. I just find that very interesting and concerning, and would say to Kash Patel, it's something you cannot overlook in your investigation, sir. Go ahead, Doctor.
Absolutely. But people need to educate themselves as to the long term. It's been generational genocide against the Palestinian people. I mean, I'm telling you, this is something that if let's say the Palestinians did initiate and carry out solely and only without the false flag thing that Lowell's just been talking about, with Israel really carrying it out, and 2 years ago on October 7th. It's amazing to me. Get the book. It's by Ilan Pappé. He's a Israeli historian. It's called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. And it's a very, very incriminating, no, not incriminating, it's a damning, it's a diabolical review of the horrific things that the Zionist movement has done to the indigenous people of Palestine. It was called Palestine.
Card, pardon the pun, as well. And this is where they exploit religion. That's not what true religion teaches. That's where last hour, Dr. Bradley and I highlighted, when you have your own opinion on religion, that's one thing. When you use religion as a wedge to violate the commandments of God, you've gone too far and violated eternal law, Doctor.
Well, there's no question about that. And what we're seeing is a religious war that we're involved in. And uh, it's something that at every single turn, every single point is a violation of everything Americanist. And we are way off track, way off base, and a monarchical president is carrying it way to the nth degree. So this is wrong on every count, on every level, and I say often that most presidents get in trouble during their second administration in international affairs.
Yes, she is. Unfortunately for the people there, and it's a time-sensitive matter. Congress cannot sit back and say, "Well, maybe we'll get to it next week." I mean, during that week's time, there's hundreds of people being killed, and so it's something that and we could have stopped it in a single day simply by refusing to give Israel more armaments, bombs and so forth, munitions for them to carry out the cleansing of Gaza. I mean, it's just criminal what our U.S. Regime has done, and here it's important to make a distinction between Israel and the Israeli government. I mean, I love the people of Israel and I love the country of Israel, but I don't love their government.
Sure. And it's
like,
also important to note that Israel has, when people try to deliver food to the Gaza Strip and to let people not starve, Israel's been very hostile to prevent that as well, even against the United States. While we're, funding bombs to Israel and war materials, we're trying to give food to the suffering people, and Israel's been a hindrance to that too, Lowell.
That's right, yeah. And in fact, there's been a number of Israeli soldiers now, or ex-soldiers, who have come out and they're blowing the whistle on what they've been asked to do. The military, Israeli military, has been asked to enforce these unlawful and criminal edicts from their own government, their own regime, and some are coming out of the woodwork and telling, blowing the whistle on it, which is good.
And they're supposed to have this release of the hostages going on and all that kind of stuff. Interestingly enough, Trump wants to be there. Benjamin Netanyahu says he can't attend. He's just too busy for the release of the hostages and to carry forward the peace agreement. Why wouldn't he think the peace agreement should be the greatest religious celebration of all? If we believe in Judeo-Christian values and if we follow the Prince of Peace, you would think that he would be all over, in my humble opinion, joining that. But no, he's too busy. That alone is very telling, if you ask my humble opinion. All right, we got the final segment coming up in seconds, folks. We got another interesting tidbit to talk about, a little closer to home, if you will. Lowell attended personally, and he's got a great report for us. He'll tell you about it in seconds. You're watching and listening to Liberty Roundtable Live, syndicated by lovingliberty.net. Promoting God, family, and country, protecting life, liberty, and property everywhere we go, using the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. The checks and balances are brilliant. The solutions are obvious. The historical relevance is beyond debate. And best of all, we turn to God, family, and country. Those are the solutions to the problems we face. They're not necessarily political. However, in the country realm, since it's God, family, and country, in the country realm, there's things that good people are doing that you got to know about. Did you know there's a conference of Utah citizens for the Constitution? A conference of Utah citizens for the Constitution. Anyway, they had their 2025 event. Lowell was there. Lowell?
Thank you, Sam. Utah Citizens for the Constitution is a group started by Jen Brown. She's the one who hosted the conference. About half a dozen speakers there provided a boatload of good information. I'm just going to highlight three of them. Andrew Liddell, remotely, he wasn't there in person, but he talked about porn in schools, these electronic devices that our students in public schools are using now are not tightened down securely enough, and so the students were able to see porn on these devices in school during school time, resulting in a harm to their health and their wellness. It results in unhealthy engagement, data insecurity, commercial manipulation, discrimination, no access to information, access to inappropriate material, right? I mean, the real problem here he went into is the business model. Basically, it's surveillance capitalism, because they can watch everything you do on this computer, and then they collect all the information they can as much as possible, and then they predict your future behavior based on what they've seen you do in the past.
Hey, Lowell.
And they can influence. Yeah.
I know this is not a laughable matter, but I've just got to say this. This really brings
Yeah.
the naked capitalist into focus.
Yeah, it really does, Sam. Did not occur to me. I'm glad it did to you, because that's so true.
Ouch, it's brutal. It's not funny, folks, but I'm being serious. The naked capitalist is this idea that you take capitalism to the extreme, never mind morals, never mind, etc. That's the term naked capitalist. There's books written about it, etc. And I'm, highlighting this porn and naked capitalist connection. They're exploiting everyone, and they're literally using blackmail. Because when they have this stuff on you, if you're not very careful, then it can be turned against you and used against you. And so this is a big problem that they've done to elites and done to professional people and elected officials for a long time. Now they're bringing it to the masses, unfortunately. We should be prosecuting all the Jeffrey Epstein's associates, but that's been buried now. We're not even talking about it, sadly, anymore. We should be, but we're not. But this brings all that back into naked focus, Lowell.
It sure does, Sam. And just another reason to get your children out of the public schools.
Wait a minute. I thought they were going to shut down the
Get 'em out.
education department, Lowell. I thought we were going to,
Yeah.
this is a non-issue, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, regardless of whether we have a federal Department of Education, the state public school institutions are still going strong on all this stuff. It turns out that educational technology, like these computers in the classrooms, they don't improve educational outcomes. Test scores continue to decline. It's just not a healthy environment. Get your children out of the public schools, the government propaganda camps, as I like to call them. So that was one speaker, very interesting. We rush on to the next speaker here, Kevin Phillips. She is the PILF attorney, the public, what is it? PILF stands for public something. Anyway, it's the law firm that is suing the Attorney General of Utah for refusing to turn over the voter rolls here in Utah. We're talking about registered voters. Here in Utah, we have three categories of voters. Now, most states have two, just the active and the inactive, but here in Utah, we've got three. We've got public, private, and withheld. There's about 40% of our population, of our registered voters are what they call public, meaning
yes, the
anybody
Public Interest
can
Legal
see
Foundation,
who
just so you know. Public Interest Legal Foundation, Lowell.
Thank you. Public Interest Legal Foundation. 58% of our voters here in Utah are what they call private, and 2% are withheld. Now, the withheld just means that the voter has a reason to not be known publicly, okay, such as the victim of an abuse, maybe a member of law enforcement, an undercover police officer or something like that, where they can't be known. And then those, 1 or 2%, I think that's reasonable. But to have 58% of your voters withhold their information simply because they want to, that is not being transparent. And so, and it turns out that the legislature moved into the withheld category private voters prior to May 12th of 2020 for no good reason. They just did it. And so anyway, according to Utah code, everyone may see the public voters, candidates and political parties may see the private voters, and only government officials may see withheld voters. But as you know, gubernatorial candidate Phil Lyman was denied access to the private voter roll.
Yes, only special government officials. Only special government officials in the separate class can see that stuff there, Lowell.
Yeah. Some government officials are more equal than others, right? So anyway, the Public Institution for Legal Foundation, Public Interest Legal Foundation, they have a website, and anyway, updates to this case will be posted on that website. So Then we get to.
All right, hold on,
Tina
Dr. Bradley. You got a
Cannon,
quick comment on this one? I know you're heavily involved in some of that, right?
Well, it's, there's so much to be said about this, and all of this lip service, and it is simply lip service given to transparency nowadays in government. Almost everything, I mean, whether it's the Epstein files or whatever that's being withheld, Utah is at the forefront of, I believe, voter fraud and election corruption. And much of it has to do with what Lowell's talking about here, where there's not an ability to go out and verify. I mean, whether it's signatures that was putting somebody on a ballot, like Spencer Cox, this lieutenant governor, partnership with the governor. They run like a president and vice president. Can you imagine Joe Biden running with Kamala Harris running the election? That's basically what's been done in Utah. I mean, these kinds of things, along with their, not just the voter rolls, but their voter elections through mail and through these machines. I mean, all of these things are corrupting points that could actually be part of the whole problem. And Utah's right at the very forefront of all of this. We think the Democrats are the only ones that do it, but I think the Republicans in Utah are pretty guilty too.
Vote in by mail, stand with paper ballots. That's a good start. Same day voting. I can keep going, but Lowell, the third one before we run out of time.
Yeah, Tina Cannon, our Utah State Auditor, she actually is, and she's really, really good. She's tenacious. She's a bulldog, and she is being as transparent as possible. What she does, she has jurisdiction over. There's 1,800 jurisdictions in Utah. We're talking cities, counties, service districts, and other, taxing entities. And she, can audit any and all of them. Now, she has a limited staff of only 50. That's 50 people helping her. But that's a big task to be auditing 1,800 every year, 1,800 jurisdictions, and it's only going to get worse. She talked about PIDs, public infrastructure districts, and also IFD, which is infrastructure financing district. This is tax increment financing on steroids, guys. And it's a way for new development to occur, and for the taxpayers who move into those newly developed homes and so forth to pay for the development of those areas. Well, traditionally, development requires the developer to go get a loan from a commercial bank. Right? They have to, and Tina Cannon made this point over and over again, that development is a speculative in nature. It is by nature speculative, right? And so if you get a loan from a commercial bank to develop a property, you have a higher interest rate to pay. Well, tax increment financing allows a developer to go ahead and develop. They get bonds, municipal bonds, which are not nearly as high an interest rate. So they benefit from a lower interest rate. They build out these areas and sell them, and then the taxpayer is on the hook for 30 to 40 years to pay off the bonds.
And then you get a moral hazard. You get a moral hazard because now no one's going to pay attention to the downside. In other words, no one's going to kind of watch the I's get dotted and the T's get crossed in terms of, is this really viable? Because they'll say, hey, there's no harm, no foul. We don't have to have as much skin in the game. Therefore, we're not as worried about the details. A moral hazard and meltdowns all over the country will be the results of this. Write it down. Remember who told you first.
Remember the naked capitalist you mentioned? The naked communist is not much different. Naked communists and naked capitalists are very close together right now.
Two sides of the same coin, huh, Doctor?
Right.
Lowell, wrap us up, buddy.
And this PID, this PID law was passed in 2019, and so the following year, 7 PIDs were created. The next year, 7 more, then 18 in 22, 40 more in 23, 84 more in 24, and 50 this year so far, making the total of 206 PIDs. And they don't have to be contiguous. That means somebody here in Moab could annex property in Riverton, Utah, and be part of that PID. And it's just crazy, guys. We need to tamp this down and stop it.
Your
It's
property
getting way out
rights,
of hand, Sam.
your property rights, ladies and gentlemen, are being assaulted, and it's got to stop. We call it out here on Liberty Roundtable Live. For Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com, for Lowell Nelson, campaignforliberty.org, for yours truly, lovingliberty.net, God save our constitutional republic.